what did Jesus actually teach about killing and the eating of meat?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of evidence, even in the New Testament, that Jesus was against the killing of animals. But the most notable one is when Jesus cleanses the temple. And what's interesting is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all have that story, but they're all very different. And you see some of the censorship throughout them. I read all four like a month or two ago to cross-compare how they described it. And I don't know how I overlooked this my whole life, but we're taught the narrative of that story that Jesus goes into the temple and creates a whip out of cords and drives the money changers out and says, this was supposed to be a house of worship, but you've turned my Father's house into a den of thieves. But so Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it doesn't say he set loose any animals in the temple except for doves. And I think Mark and Luke, it says he set some doves free. And you're like, that's weird, just doves, But in the Gospel of John, interestingly enough, it says he sets the oxen, the sheep, and the doves loose from their cages and then kicks over the money tables. So he was clearly upset about the animals being caged, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't release them. And so it wasn't just that people were monetizing the temple. It was that they were monetizing it off of the death of innocents. And that's what Jesus was really condemning them for, is that just like today, everything is monopolized, right? The priesthood was making hand over fist on these animal sacrifices. I mean, think how much money they must have been making to have 250,000 goats slaughtered on the Passover. I don't know how much each goat cost, but they're getting paid pretty well, right? And so you see a new picture of why Jesus was probably crucified is that he was getting in the way of the priesthood's money-making scheme by calling them out and condemning their practices. And that's, even in our world today, when people get offed, it's always because they're getting in the way of someone's money in some way. They're threatening someone's power or their money. No different in Jesus's day. So I kind of see Jesus now as like the first censored person in human history, or maybe even the first conspiracy theorist, because he's saying, none of this is real. This is all a money scheme and you're all corrupting the temple. Oh, come on, Jesus. That's a conspiracy theory. They're genuine, I'm sure, right?
I've always loved that understanding and depiction also of Jesus, because I think most people have this perception of love being this kind of like soft, fragile, docile, submissive type of energy where it can really express and be extremely fierce and protective for the way.
Yeah. And Jesus definitely shows that. So your original question was about the Jesus diet. You want to get into that now? So I painted that picture just to show you like some evidence in the Bible that Jesus was very against this practice, but in the Essene gospel of peace, it's unquestionably all over the place, him condemning the practice of eating flesh. And he says, he who eats the flesh of beasts eats the body of death, and death can only produce death, whereas life can only produce life. And this was very helpful for me on my own spiritual path, because I was a vegetarian many years ago for about a year and a half in 2019. And I wasn't eating a correct vegan diet by any means. I was not eating any animal products. I was just eating rice and vegetables. And so after a year of that, my hormone levels had crashed. My thyroid had crashed. My cholesterol was terrible. And my nutritionist who looked at my blood work was like, you got to have some saturated fat, man, from animal products. And I had stopped eating animals because I didn't want to participate in the karma of killing something, right? But I said, okay, God, I'm in a rock and a hard place here, because I don't feel right about killing an innocent animal just so I can eat. That feels very service to self. But my body's clearly telling me it needs that to be healthy. So it can't be loving to my body to not be healthy. So I just went back eating only grass-fed, grass-finished meat from my local farmer's market, no factory farming at all, but nonetheless, someone's still killing an animal for me to eat, right? And my hormones went back to normal. I went back to healthy levels. I felt great, but there was always that internal conflict. And when it was interestingly during a night of insomnia about 4 or 5 months ago that I couldn't sleep, and I was about 2/3 of the way through the first gospel. And it was one of those nights where you're like, I'm wide freaking awake. I am definitely not going to sleep anytime soon. Might as well just accept it and be productive, right? So I had this thought to go to my upstairs living room and read the Essene gospel. So it's like 2:30 a.m. I go upstairs and I start reading it, and it's the passage where he gets into the diet, which I call the Jesus diet for convenience. And he explains why eating meat is unholy and defiles the body and putrefies the gut and all this stuff. And I understood, I had like almost a psychedelic revelation of it, where I understood what he's trying to say in a very first century way, which is that all that really matters in our food is the prana, the life force energy in it. And whether it's minerals, nutrients, vitamins, everything is just different ways of packaging the same elixir of life. And so when you eat fruits and things that are alive when you eat them, plants or eggs or milk or something like that, you're getting the life force energy from the food. And so it's helping not only your physical body be nourished, but it's helping the spiritual body, the subtle body, be nourished with more prana. But when you eat a dead animal, the life force had left that animal when it died. And so you're just eating the packages without the energy inside the package, which is really all that matters. And any biochemist will even say this, that it's ultimately just the ATP our body needs, but it gets that ATP in all these different ways from different nutrients, right? So I started to look at food more like the difference of the matter and water ratio in the food, that water carries that life force energy in it, the angel of water. And so I think meat is like 60% water or 70% water, but fruit is like 99% water, same with vegetables. So you're obviously getting way more life force energy from the fruit or the vegetable. But on top of that, the meat is dead, so it doesn't even have the life force in it anymore. And so you're getting some nutrients that are maybe good for your physical body, but nothing to help the spiritual body. And then the second huge factor is the karma that you participate in, because going back to the first holy law that we talked about, the everlasting agreement between God and man is do no harm, protect and honor the free will of all beings, love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself. Is it loving your neighbor as yourself to kill someone and eat them? Certainly not. So although I didn't go out and kill the cow or the pig, I'm participating in that karmic event in some way when I eat the flesh, right? So in that night of reading that, it all made sense to me on a level that I had been praying to God to answer this question for me of, is it right or wrong? I don't know anymore. And so when Jesus explains the diet, he firstly talks very highly of raw milk. And I've always been a big fan of raw milk. But he basically says that raw milk is one of the greatest foods God created for man to eat, because animals are meant for man, but we're supposed to eat what animals produce, not the animals themselves. So the milk and the eggs and whatnot. And if you think about what milk is, it's actually just a very compacted, densified plant product, because all that cows eat is grass and plants. And so it's the cow's digestive system that sort of like shilajit. It's like compounded plant substances in liquid form. And so you've got the whole host of amino acids, vitamins and minerals, a lot of hormone health enzymes and digestive enzymes that heal the gut and reset gut bacteria. And then you have eggs, which are also part of what's allowed and encouraged in the Jesus diet, which again have a perfect amino acid profile, omega-3s, saturated fats, all the stuff I wasn't getting when I was vegetarian. And he recommends, of course, lots of fruit and honey and vegetables, herbs, nuts, and seeds. It's all good. It's basically just like don't eat meat, and you're avoiding the karma that comes with it.